Today, Henrique is going to shake up the entire musical industrial complex by blowing up what we know about how to hear notes. And that's the key. Today, you're going to learn how to hear notes, not intervals. Henrique, what's the problem?
I think hearing intervals and doing all this ear training interval exercises is a huge waste of time. It doesn't solve most of the problems we encounter as professional musicians.
But I went to conservatory, you went to conservatory. It's one of the first things we learned. We learned that a perfect fifth is Star Wars. We learned that, like the minor sixth is Black Orpheus. Why is that wrong?
Well, the issue about this is that when you learn intervals, you're just learning two individual notes and how they relate to one another without any tonal context. And then for me, it's just useless. You're just learning like how to connect two dots in the air without even, you need a third dot in order to create a triangle, meaning the relationship between a note and a chord is 10 times more useful than the relationship between two random notes.
So, Henrique, talk to us about intervals and why training this way is just not the best way to start us.
The songs that we normally learn, for example, let me give you an example. What song did you use to learn minor six, for example?
Black Orpheus.
Correct?
Yeah, right.
So la da. So we all think that we're going from the 1 to the flat 6 because it's a minor 6.
Yeah, but not
But in reality, it's not that, right?
It's the fifth to the minor third.
Exactly. It's in a different key. So the problem is like we learn certain intervals in a completely different relationship where your bottom note of your interval is not your tonal center anymore.
Another good one, Here Comes the Bride, the perfect fourth.
Exactly.
It's the 5 to 1.
The bottom note is not the tonal center. The bottom note is the fifth because the piece is in F.
And this stuff can really trip musicians up because if you're
100%.
out in the real world and you're soloing and you're relying on independent notes as intervals, but there are chords happening underneath it, you really need to have understood the context. A lot of people can just get confused.
So this is what I recommend that people do instead. Okay, first, stop ever doing any more exercises with intervals. Okay, it goes nowhere. Instead, this is what you should do: play a chord on your left hand. You can, anyone can play a C major on a piano. Try to play any random note. Just drop your hand, and then you're like, oh, that's an A flat.
It's a flat 6.
Another A flat. That's a do. G, La, T, like however you want to call, 7, T, Do, Re, Mi, the name doesn't matter, okay? But the idea is to hear notes always in harmonic context. And you may ask, oh, isn't it the same thing as doing an interval? You're just doing, calculated the interval between the note you're singing and the bottom note of your chord. No, because a note is not a tonal center. A tonal center is more than just a note.
It's a gravity.
A tonal center there's a gravity pull, and many times the answer, what's going to help you identify an interval, is not the distance between that and the bass, but is how that note behaves and where that note is feeling a certain gravitational pull. Let me demonstrate. So let's say the first step, we should all learn chord tones. When you have a song that starts on the 1, like Twinkle Twinkle, or on the 3rd, like the
Fool on
the Hill, or the 5th. For example, I'm using these songs, but there's so many that start on chord tones. If you don't know yet and you're hearing a chord tone and you don't know which chord tone it is, then you can probably sing your way back to your tonic.
Man, this is great too, Henrique, because what you're saying basically is if you are singing or playing a note that is not one of the root 3rd, 5th, then you're naturally going to have an inclination to move that note to a gravity. Can we test it?
Yeah. So for example, the second note, that second note is really unstable, all right? It's by nature unstable. And he wants to resolve down. Right? The same thing if I play a flat minor second, a flat 2. You immediately want to feel that pull. So every note is not just a note. Every note has a melody that it implies, has a tendency. It's a tendency tone, right? If I have a flat 3 here, it's really bluesy and dissonant. Where does this note want to go?
Maybe up to the 3rd. Oh my gosh, the Brazilian Gene Harris is back.
So, for example, the flat 3, E flat in this case, doesn't want to go to C, it wants to go to E. The 4th. Exactly. If you have any music with suspension, the F sharp, the tritone, always wants to resolve upward.
And this is the one that works with all of the interval training we've learned. The Simpsons,
Exactly.
Maria.
Okay.
Let's do our flat 6.
Instead of going changing the key in order to adjust, to adapt to the interval, none of that. Play the chord, play the note, sing the note. You want to resolve down. It's tense, I can feel it in my voice, wants to resolve down. It's very kind of imagetic. It's like film score, right?
Hans Zimmer over here. The Brazilian Hans Zimmer.
God. The A has a certain grace about it, but it also wants to go back to the 5th. It's interesting to see how the 5th has such strong gravity. It's just pulling everything towards. So if you play an A, if you play an A flat, if you play an F sharp, they all want to kind of merge there, right? Then you have a flat 7, going up to C, and a major 7. That's really easy. The 7th wants to merge with the root on top. So instead of trying to identify always one note with one bass note, try to identify a note in relationship to a chord and what is the melody that note is trying to imply.
Hit me up with a couple.
Here you go. I play something just to... You know when you... people who do wine tasting, that in between wines you have to take a little sparkling water to kind of clean your palate. Let me clean your palate.
Oh, fantastic.
Those are Messiaen orange chords. From the
I feel like I've
Quartet for
just
Neo Times,
swished
by the
and
way.
spit into the bucket. Now I'm ready.
There you go.
That's the tritone because I want to go da.
Good. Another one.
That's a minor 3rd.
Another one.
Re, right? It's the 2. Da. No, oh no, it's the 6. It's the 6.
Ah. Here's another one, Tim.
Major 7.
Exactly. The big conclusion is that every note that's not a chord tone is some sort of a suspension. And a suspension by nature is a note that needs to resolve, that's being held out of its place so that it resolves, it carries tension in itself. And your job, a good student of ear training, is someone who can identify where the gravity is pulling that note that is suspended.
We'd love to know what you think. Some of you probably do not agree with us, and we'd love to hear from you as well. We're equal opportunity in the comments.
If you have different methods that work really well for you, feel free to share them here. And if not, stop practicing intervals altogether. Just start doing this. I really recommend.
Intervals out, note placement in.